Mark had always enjoyed the quiet hours of the night. While most people were asleep, he liked sitting under the open sky, listening to the soft wind moving across the desert. The desert felt endless to him, like a peaceful world far away from noise and crowded places. That night, he set up his small folding chair beside his old camper and pointed his telescope toward a cluster of bright stars. He had been watching for weeks. He often told himself he did it for fun, but deep inside, he hoped he would see something new one day, something no one had ever recorded. The air was cool, and the sky was unusually clear. Mark leaned forward, adjusting the focus ring on the telescope. He was searching for a tiny sparkle he had seen the previous night, a light that didn't behave like a star. It had shifted, almost as if it were alive. He tried not to get too excited. Many times he had mistaken regular star movements for something unusual. But tonight, as he stared through the lens, the sparkle appeared again. Only this time, it wasn't in the distance. It was closer, much closer. The light flickered, then stretched like a thin ribbon, waving in slow motion. Mark blinked, thinking his eyes were playing a trick on him. He stepped back from the telescope and looked directly at the sky. The ribbon of light was still there, glowing softly like moonlight passing through water. It hung in the air just a few yards from his campsite. A strange calmness washed over him. He knew he should feel nervous or confused, but he didn't. Instead, he felt curious, very curious. The glowing ribbon began to pull itself into a small opening, like someone gently drawing a curtain apart. The air around it shimmered, forming a kind of doorway made of light. Mark's breath caught. He didn't know what he was seeing, but he was sure it wasn't a natural event. Then something stepped through the shimmering doorway at first. Mark only saw a silhouette tall, slim, and moving with a kind of softness that didn't look like any animal or person he knew. When the shape came closer, the glow softened, and he saw her clearly. She was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Her skin had a smooth, gentle shine, almost like soft fur blended with light. Her hair fell in long layered strands, and her ears were slightly pointed like a canine's, yet delicate and graceful. Her large eyes glowed faintly, not in a frightening way but in a warm and peaceful manner, like a lantern guiding someone through a dark path. Mark took a slow step backward, not because he felt threatened, but because the moment was so extraordinary that his body didn't know what else to do. The visitor raised her hand in a calming gesture, her movements gentle and thoughtful. "It's all right," she said in a soft voice that sounded as if two tones blended together perfectly. "I'm here in peace." Mark swallowed, wondering if he was dreaming. Who are you?" he asked, his voice shaking just a little. "My name is Leora," she replied with a small smile that reached her glowing eyes. "I am a traveler from far beyond your sky." Mark stared, unable to look away. He had read countless stories about visitors from other worlds, but none of them ever felt real to him until now. He noticed that Leora's expression carried kindness and something else, familiarity, as if she wasn't meeting him by accident. "You don't need to fear me," she continued, her voice steady and warm. "I have watched your world for a long time, and tonight, I came because I need help." Mark's heart beat faster. He wasn't sure how he could help someone who came from another world. "Help," he echoed. "Why me?" Leora looked at him with a thoughtful pause before answering. "Because you listen to the night. Many people look at the sky, but few listen to it." "You do." Her words surprised him. He had never thought of it that way. He simply enjoyed the quiet, the stars, and the feeling of being connected to something bigger. But to hear her say it made him realize that maybe his quiet nights meant more than he thought. Leora stepped closer. Mark noticed her feet didn't sink into the sand the way his did. She walked lightly, as if gravity affected her differently. The soft glow around her dimmed slightly, blending her more naturally into the desert night. "I belong to a peaceful world called Kanasari," she explained. "My people have visited your earth many times, always quietly and respectfully. We learn from your nature and your skies, but we do not interfere." Mark nodded slowly. He didn't understand everything, but he wanted to. "Then why come to me?" he asked again, feeling the weight of something important in her words. Leora looked up at the stars for a moment, before turning her eyes back to him. "Because my time has come. My journey is part of a tradition older than many worlds. When the generation arc aligns, members of my kind must travel to a special place where our young ones can begin their life cycle. This time, the alignment led me here." Mark listened carefully, trying to piece together what she was saying. "So, you came here because you're expecting?" he asked gently, not wanting to be disrespectful. Leora nodded with a soft laugh. "Yes, in your words, I suppose that's correct. My young ones will be born soon, and they will be different from any life you know, but they will not bring harm. They are peaceful, pure, and only wish to grow." Her calm honesty made the situation feel surprisingly natural. The desert air felt warmer now, the stars brighter, as if the whole world leaned in to listen. Mark sat down on his folding chair, not because he was tired, but because everything felt so big and unbelievable. Leora slowly sat on the sand across from him, folding her legs with graceful ease. She studied him with curious yet gentle eyes. "I know this is much to accept," she said kindly. "It is rare for humans to witness our arrival, but I sensed your openness to the unknown. I sensed your respect for the sky. These qualities matter to us." Mark brushed a hand through his hair, still unsure whether he was handling this well. I don't know what I can do, he admitted. I'm not an expert on anything important. Leora shook her head lightly. You do not need to be an expert. You only need to stand with understanding and kindness. That is enough. Her words landed softly but deeply. Mark felt a strange wave of comfort. He didn't feel chosen in a stressful way. He felt included, connected to something beautiful. For now, Leora continued, I simply need a safe place to prepare. A place untouched by noise and confusion. This desert is perfect. And you, she paused, smiling gently. You make it even better. You bring calmness to it. Mark felt his cheeks warm. No one had ever described him like that. They spent the next hour talking. Leora told him small details about her world, how her people lived in harmony with nature, how they communicated through gentle tones and shared light, how their young ones were born during special cosmic alignments. She spoke with such softness that Mark felt as if he were hearing stories from an old friend rather than an otherworldly traveler. She never spoke in a complicated or confusing way. Her words were simple, clear, and warm. She wanted him to understand, and she made sure he did. As the night stretched on, the desert grew quieter. The stars hardened into bright points of light overhead, and the air cooled once more. Leora looked peaceful sitting there, her soft glow blending beautifully with the moonlit sand. Mark realized something important then. For the first time in his life, the universe didn't feel far away. It didn't feel impossible or unreachable. It felt close, gentle, and familiar because Leora had stepped through a doorway of light and chosen to trust him, and somehow, he trusted her too. The night around them felt like the beginning of something extraordinary. And Mark knew deep inside that nothing in his life would ever be the same again. The next morning, Mark woke up feeling unsure whether everything from the night before had truly happened. The desert was bright and calm, the sky a soft blue, and the sand warmed quickly under the rising sun. For a moment he wondered if he had simply dreamed the entire encounter. But when he stepped outside his camper, he saw Leora standing a short distance away, her glowing eyes reflecting the early light. She was looking at the mountains, listening to the breeze, as if the desert were speaking to her. So it was real. Everything had been real. Leora turned toward him with a gentle smile. Good morning, Mark. Her voice sounded exactly as it had the night before, soft, calm, and warm. Like a song that stayed in the air even after the music stopped. Mark felt his nervousness return, but it blended with a strange feeling of comfort. He waved awkwardly. Morning. Wasn't sure I'd still see you here. I said I needed your help, she replied kindly, so I stayed. Her tone wasn't demanding or urgent. She spoke as if the decision was natural, as if she felt safe here, and that thought made Mark feel quietly proud. Leora seemed fascinated by everything around her. She knelt down and touched the sand with her long, delicate fingers. The grains glowed faintly for a moment when she touched them, as if reacting to her presence. She looked up at Mark thoughtfully. Your world always feels alive, even in simple places, she said. That is why my people cherish it. Mark sat down on a smooth rock near his campsite, feeling the warmth of the morning sun on his face. You said you've been here before, or your people have. Leora nodded. Yes. Many of us have visited Earth through different eras in your history. We never stay long, and we never interfere with human life. Our purpose is to observe and learn. This world holds energy that helps guide our own. Mark listened closely, trying to imagine everything she described. How long will you stay this time? He asked. That depends on my young ones, she said softly. They choose their moment. My role is to prepare myself and the space around me so they can arrive safely. Mark felt a mixture of excitement and responsibility. He didn't know anything about alien births, but he wanted to help however he could. What do you need? He asked sincerely. Leora looked around the desert landscape and let out a thoughtful breath. A calm environment, a place where the air is steady and the earth is unbroken. This location is already good, but I must understand how my energy interacts with your land first. She walked a slow circle around his campsite, occasionally touching the sand or placing her hand near a rock. Each time, the air shimmered slightly, as if responding to her touch. Mark felt like he was watching a gentle dance, nothing rushed, nothing harsh, only soft movements guided by purpose. When she finished her careful walk, she joined him near the camper. Your world is stronger than I expected, she said, her voice filled with admiration. This place will work well. Mark felt relieved. So, what happens now? Now, we get to know each other, she said, as if it were the most normal answer. Mark blinked. Get to know me? Yes. She tilted her head slightly. Our young ones respond to the emotional balance of their soul. They sense the heart of the places where they will be born. Your presence creates calmness here, and they will feel that. That is why I said you could help. Mark felt his face warm again. He had never thought of himself as calming. Most of the time he thought of himself as just an ordinary person who liked quiet nights. Leora sat down on the sand beside him, folding her knees with graceful ease. She looked up at the sky and closed her eyes as a gentle breeze brushed past them. Her long hair fluttered lightly, catching small sparkles of sunlight. You spend many nights looking at the sky, she said. Mark was surprised by her question. Guess I just like the feeling of being close to something big, he said slowly. The stars make me feel peaceful. I like knowing there's more out there. Leora opened her eyes and smiled softly. That is a good reason. Many humans look at the sky with curiosity, but they do not feel connected to it. You do. That connection is what called me here. Mark stared at her, trying to absorb her words. Called you? Yes, she replied. The energy of our alignment led me to a place on Earth, but within that place, I sensed a deeper calmness. That calmness belonged to you. Mark didn't know how to respond. He had never imagined something he enjoyed quietly and privately stargazing could matter to someone from another world. But Leora spoke with such sincerity that he couldn't doubt her. As the day warmed, Mark brewed coffee on his small gas stove. Leora sat beside him, watching curiously as he poured the dark liquid into a cup. She leaned closer to the cup and breathed in gently. It smells warm, she said. What is it? It's coffee, Mark explained. Humans drink it for energy, or because they like the taste. Leora smiled and touched the cup lightly. She didn't drink it, but she seemed fascinated by it. Your world has many small joys, she said. Mark laughed quietly. I guess we do. Sometimes it's easy to forget. They spent the afternoon talking. Leora asked him questions about human life, about weather, about families, about why people sometimes felt afraid of things they didn't understand. She listened carefully to his answers, as if every detail mattered. Mark found himself opening up more than he expected. He told her about his quiet life, about how he worked at a small repair shop in town, about how he enjoyed simple things like hiking or watching sunsets. Leora never interrupted him. She listened with genuine interest, her expression warm and calm. When the sun began to set, the sky turned a deep orange, then purple, then soft navy blue. Leora stood silently for a moment, facing the fading light. Her eyes reflected the colors like a gentle mirror. Night is when my energy aligns most clearly, she said. This is when I feel the presence of my young ones. Mark felt a soft chill of awe. Can you talk to them? In a way, she replied. They are not fully formed yet, but their essence reaches for mine. They understand feelings before they understand anything else. Mark stepped closer. Are they okay? Yes, she said with a peaceful smile. They are calm. That is a good sign. The stars appeared one by one above them. Mark noticed that Leora seemed to glow a little brighter under the night sky. The air around her shimmered faintly, like a soft halo that flickered with her breathing. He sat beside her on the sand, and they watched the sky together. Do you miss your world? Mark asked. Leora took a slow breath. Yes, but I feel peaceful here, and I am not alone. Mark felt his heart warm. I'm glad, he said quietly. Leora turned her glowing eyes toward him, her expression gentle. You have a kind spirit, Mark. That is rare. It helps me more than you know. A quiet moment settled between them, soft and comfortable. The night felt peaceful, as if the stars themselves were watching over them. After a long silence, Leora spoke again. My young ones are getting closer. I can feel their presence growing. Soon, there will be signs. Small ones at first. What kind of signs? Mark asked. Changes in the air, light patterns, soft sounds that do not belong to any creature here, she explained. But none of it will be harmful. It is their way of saying hello. Mark nodded, excitement building in his chest. I'll be here, he said. Whatever you need. Leora smiled, her eyes glowing warmly. I know. As the night deepened, Mark realized that his life had shifted into a new path, one filled with mystery, trust, and wonders he never expected. And as he sat beside Leora under the stars, he felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose, and a quiet promise that the journey ahead would be even more extraordinary. The days that followed felt different for Mark, almost magical in a gentle and quiet way. Each morning he woke up wondering what new sign might appear. Leora had told him that the arrival of her young ones would not happen all at once. Instead, the world around them would slowly begin to react to the special energy surrounding her, like nature sensing something important was coming. At first, nothing looked unusual. The sky was clear, the sand moved softly under the breeze, and the desert animals behaved the same as always. Mark began to wonder if maybe he was imagining everything again. But Leora remained calm, patient, and certain. She would often stand in the open space beside the campsite, eyes closed, breathing slowly as if listening to something only she could hear. One evening, just before sunset, Mark noticed the first sign. He was sitting near the small fire pit, sorting through some tools when he felt a strange, almost ticklish vibration in the air. It was gentle, not loud or frightening, more like a soft hum that brushed past his ears. He looked around, thinking maybe a small bug had flown near him, but nothing was there. The sound wasn't exactly a sound. It felt like a smooth wave passing through the space. Leora turned toward him the moment the vibration came. Her eyes brightened slightly, and a soft smile touched her face. You felt it? She asked quietly. Mark nodded. What was that? The beginning, she said. A simple greeting from them. They are growing stronger. Her words filled Mark with a warm mix of excitement and awe. It was such a gentle sign, almost peaceful, yet he knew it meant something very important. As the sun slipped behind the mountains, the sky changed from gold to pink to a deep purple. Mark noticed that the air around the campsite seemed a little clearer, almost glowing in a soft, natural way. Not bright enough to draw attention, but noticeable to anyone who spent enough time in the desert. That night, Leora sat beside him on the sand as they both watched the stars appear. There will be more signs, she said, but each one will be calm and natural. They do not bring any harm. Mark appreciated how she always reassured him. Even though everything happening was unusual, he never felt afraid. Leora's calmness spread easily, giving the whole place a peaceful atmosphere. The next morning brought the second sign. Mark woke early to the sound of light tapping off rhythmic and strangely melodic. When he stepped outside, he saw small glimmering patterns on the sand. They weren't footprints or drawings, but more like tiny shapes made from light. The shapes shifted gently, as if glowing dust had settled into a pattern for a moment before fading back into the sand. Leora knelt beside the glowing marks and touched the sand with her fingertips. The light responded to her touch, shimmering softly. She looked up at Mark, her eyes warm. They are speaking through light today, she explained. They communicate through energy, even before being fully formed. Mark stared with amazement. So, they're happy. Or, curious? Both Leora answered with a soft laugh. They feel safe here, and they sense your presence too. Mark felt a small burst of pride. The idea that beings from another world could sense him and feel calm because of him was something he never imagined would happen in his life. As the day grew warmer, the desert animals began behaving oddly but in a peaceful way. Instead of running away, small creatures moved closer to the campsite, sitting quietly as if listening to something invisible. Even the birds flew in slow, graceful arcs above them, circling with unusual patterns. Mark looked at Leora with wonder. Is this another sign? She nodded slowly. Yes, nature reacts to their arrival. Animals feel the harmony before humans do. Mark watched a small desert fox sit calmly near a rock, tail curled neatly around its paws, as if it were a gentle guardian. Everything felt strangely connected, as if the entire desert had become a quiet room waiting for something important. That evening, something even more surprising happened. The sky didn't change color the way it normally did. Instead of turning orange first, it shifted into a soft silver blue light that seemed to glow from within the air itself. Clouds formed gentle shapes, floating slowly and quietly above them. Mark stood still, staring upward. Is this normal for your arrival? Not normal, Leora said softly, gazing at the sky with wonder. But beautiful. Sometimes the universe expresses joy. This must be one of those times. She reached out her hand as if touching the glowing air. Her presence seemed to blend with the shimmering light, making her appear even more graceful and serene. As the sky darkened into night, the silver blue glow remained, giving the desert a calm, dreamlike atmosphere. Mark felt as if he were walking in a peaceful world slightly separated from reality. When they sat down to talk, Leora seemed thoughtful. My young ones are closer than before. Their energy is connecting strongly with mine. Soon, I will feel the full alignment. Mark nodded, listening carefully. How will we know when the moment is very near? Leora looked at him, her expression warm and gentle. You will know, Mark. You already feel the changes. Your heart will recognize the moment even before I speak of it. Her words made Mark feel strangely honored. He didn't understand everything happening, but he knew he wanted to be there to help, to support and to witness the incredible event. As the night deepened, the desert grew calmer, more silent than usual. Even the wind seemed to soften. Mark sat beside Leora, listening to her speak about her world. She told him how her people lived among tall, crystal-like trees that gently glowed at night, how their homes were built from flexible materials that responded to the warmth of their hands, how their communication was a blend of words and gentle tones of light. Everything she described sounded peaceful and harmonious, a place built around understanding rather than conflict. Mark found himself imagining her world, wondering what it would be like to walk through glowing forests or sit beneath skies filled with shifting lights. He couldn't help but smile. Your world sounds beautiful, he said. Leora smiled softly. So is yours. In many ways, they are similar, just shaped by different histories. Mark appreciated her words. Few people talked about Earth with such warmth and admiration. Having someone from another world say it made everything feel more special. Later that night, just when Mark was about to head into the camper to rest, he felt something unusual beneath his feet. Not shaking, not movement, just a warm, gentle pulse coming from the ground, almost like a heartbeat. He stopped walking and looked down. Leora, do you feel that? She stepped closer, her expression thoughtful. Yes, this is an important sign. The ground responds when the energy of the young ones grows strong. Mark placed his palm gently on the sand. The warmth beneath it pulsed again, slow and steady. It felt calm, almost soothing, as if the earth itself were breathing lightly. Leora knelt beside him, closing her eyes. Her hair fell around her shoulders, glowing faintly in the moonlight. This means they are almost ready to reveal themselves in a more direct way, she whispered. Their connection to the world is strong now. Mark looked at her with quiet excitement. Does that mean they'll be here soon? Yes, she said softly. Very soon. The warm pulse faded gently, leaving the desert still and peaceful once more. But the memory of it remained in Mark's hand, like a soft echo resting on his skin. He stood beside Leora, under the star-filled sky, feeling the air shift around them with calm, mysterious energy. Everything seemed to be building toward a moment he couldn't quite imagine yet, but he knew it would be extraordinary. And as the quiet night wrapped around them, Mark realized that every small sign, every soft shimmer of light, every gentle sound in the air, was leading them closer to the moment Leora had told him about from the beginning. The moment when the young ones would arrive, and the desert, the sky, and even Mark's own heart were all waiting for it. The night that everything changed began quietly, almost too quietly. Mark had gotten used to the soft signs, the gentle humming air, the tiny glowing shapes on the sand, the peaceful reactions of the desert animals, but that evening, the stillness felt different. It wasn't heavy or frightening. It felt like the world was waiting, holding its breath in a calm, respectful silence. Leora sat near the open space beside the campsite, her eyes bright with a soft, silver glow. She had seemed thoughtful all day, listening to the sky, the breeze, and the earth with a deeper focus than usual. Mark sensed that something important was approaching, but he didn't want to disturb her quiet concentration. The sun had disappeared behind the mountains, leaving a soft violet twilight behind. The air felt fresh and gentle. Mark could hear nothing but the slow, steady beat of his own heart. Then, slowly, the air around Leora began to shimmer. At first, Mark thought it was just the leftover glow from the day's light, but as he stepped closer, he saw the shimmer grow. It looked like tiny threads of light floating in the air, spinning slowly and gracefully around her. They moved like soft ribbons made of moonlight. Leora, Mark whispered, not wanting to interrupt the moment. Is it happening? She lifted her head, and her glowing eyes met his. Her expression was warm, peaceful, and filled with deep meaning. Yes, Mark, she said softly. The moment is near. Her voice sounded more musical than usual, as if it carried a harmony within it. The shimmering lights brightened slightly, flowing in delicate waves that circled her gently. Mark felt his heart race, but in an excited, gentle way. He moved a little closer, careful not to disturb anything. The sand beneath his feet felt warm and soft, as if it were part of the energy forming around them. Leora placed her hand over her heart, closing her eyes. They are calling to me, she whispered. Their energy is ready to connect with this world. Mark looked around in amazement. The desert seemed alive. Small pebbles glowed faintly. The wind carried a soft melodic hum, like the quiet singing of distant chimes. Even the stars above them looked brighter, as if they had moved closer to watch. Then the air shifted very slowly, very calmly. A soft glow formed around Leora's entire body, rising from the ground and circling her in smooth patterns. It wasn't harsh or bright. It was gentle, warm, and almost comforting. It reminded Mark of sunlight seen through soft curtains. Leora took a deep breath. Mark, she said in a steady, kind voice, stay close, but do not touch the light. It is here to protect the moment. Mark nodded quickly. I won't touch it. I'm right here. Her smile was small but full of trust. Thank you. The shimmering glow around her began to lift slightly, as if a soft, invisible wind was carrying it upward. Leora rose a few inches off the ground, not floating wildly, but gently as if the desert itself was holding her with care. Mark held his breath. He had never seen anything like this, yet nothing about it felt frightening. It felt natural, peaceful, and full of meaning. Then Leora opened her eyes wide, and her voice calm but filled with deep emotion carried through the glowing air. The one-eye puppies are coming, she announced softly. It's time. Mark felt a wave of wonder wash through him. The sentence echoed in the quiet night, and suddenly everything around them responded. The glow around Leora thickened slightly, forming a soft, cocoon-like sphere. It wasn't solid. Mark could still see her silhouette inside. She looked serene, her hands resting gently over her heart, her hair floating slightly as if lifted by a soft breeze. The cocoon pulsed slowly, like the gentle heartbeat of light. Inside the glowing sphere, faint shapes began to form, small, warm, and moving lightly. Mark leaned forward a little, his eyes wide. The shapes looked like tiny outlines, no larger than soft, newborn animals. They had gentle, rounded forms, and inside their centers, small points of light pulsed softly. Leora's voice came through the glow. Calm and steady. They are forming through energy, not in the way humans think of birth. They come from the harmony between my essence and the universe's alignment. This is a moment of creation from light itself. Mark couldn't look away. It felt like watching a star being born from the inside of a dream. The shapes inside the sphere moved gently, drifting like small clouds made of warm light. Each movement seemed carefully guided. Mark felt a sense of quiet joy in the air, as if the forming young ones were expressing their excitement in their own way. The sphere brightened slightly, and soft waves of warm air flowed outward. They weren't strong but felt like gentle touches against Mark's skin. It made him feel strangely peaceful, as if the moment were touching his heart directly. The small shapes inside the sphere grew clearer. Their outlines shifted from pure light into soft, gentle forms. Mark saw the first hint of fur shimmering, smooth, and glowing in a soft, natural way. Then, slowly, the tiny forms took shape, looking like small puppies curled in calm, floating positions. At their center, each one had a single bright eye, not harsh or strange, but gentle and filled with warm light. The eyes seemed to pulse softly, like tiny stars breathing. Mark blinked, overwhelmed with awe. They're beautiful, he whispered. Leora's voice came through the glow, soft and full of emotion. Yes, they are my heart. The sphere began to lower slightly, touching the sand with a gentle shimmer. The air grew warmer around them, filled with a soothing softness that made Mark feel calm from head to toe. Slowly, the glow around the sphere faded, not suddenly, but gradually, like morning light gently brightening a room. The shapes inside grew clearer until Mark could see 3 tiny puppies, each resting peacefully near Leora, wrapped in gentle halos of light. Leora slowly descended back to the ground. The glow around her softened until it was only a faint shimmer, blending into the quiet night. She opened her eyes slowly. They were filled with joy and a deep peace. Mark stepped closer, careful and respectful. Leora, are you all right? She nodded, her smile warm and tender. Yes, they are here now. He lowered himself to his knees beside her, unable to look away from the tiny newborns. They were small, soft, and glowing faintly. Their single eyes blinked slowly, like little stars waking up for the first time. The moment felt sacred, gentle, and full of life. Leora rested her hand near them, and the puppies moved closer, sensing her presence. Their little bodies shimmered with a soft silver light that mingled with hers. Mark felt his heart swell at the sight. It was peaceful, pure, and completely unlike anything he had ever known. They sense you too, Leora said softly. They know you are here with us. Mark smiled, feeling a warm flutter in his chest. I'm honored, he whispered. The puppies let out soft, melodic sounds, tiny hums that felt like smiles made of sound. Their presence made the air around them glow softly, and Mark felt a calmness settle deep into his heart. Leora gently lifted her gaze to him. Her eyes glowed softly, filled with trust. The most important moment is still ahead, she said quietly. There is one more part to this journey. Mark nodded slowly, already feeling the weight of something important approaching. He didn't know exactly what it would be, but he knew without question he was ready for whatever came next. The bright light around Leora slowly faded, leaving a soft glow on the ground where she floated just moments before. The air grew still, almost as if the entire desert held its breath. Mark blinked several times, trying to let his eyes adjust. The intense radiance had been overwhelming, but the peaceful silence that followed felt almost unreal. He waited, afraid to move too quickly, afraid to disturb whatever new life had just arrived. When the light settled completely, Mark saw them, 3 tiny shapes, curled gently on the smooth sand, each surrounded by a faint ring of silver shimmer. They were small, no larger than newborn puppies, but they carried a presence that felt far greater than their size. Their fur was soft-looking and almost cloud-like, as if woven from starlight instead of hair. In the center of each of their little faces was a single round eye, closed for now, glowing faintly with a warm and gentle light. Mark felt something stir deep inside him, wonder, awe, and a strange kind of peace all blending together. He knelt slowly, not wanting to frighten the newborns. Even though they were alien, there was something pure and comforting about them. They looked delicate but also strangely strong, like tiny beings made for a world far bigger than the one they now rested in. Leora lay only a few feet away, breathing softly. Her body looked tired, but her expression was peaceful. She lifted her head slightly and smiled at Mark with gratitude. He could see how much energy she had given to bring her children into the world. Even in her exhaustion, she looked proud and calm, as though she had fulfilled a promise she had carried for a long time. Mark wanted to speak, to say something meaningful, something that matched the weight of the moment, but no words came. All he could do was kneel there, stunned by the beauty and responsibility placed before him. Leora watched him quietly, sensing his emotions even before he could understand them himself. They are safe, she whispered in a faint but steady voice. They are here, and the world is quiet enough for them to grow. Mark nodded slowly, even though he didn't fully understand what that meant. He reached a hand toward the nearest puppy, pausing just before touching it. The puppy shifted slightly, opening its single glowing eye for the first time. The light from that eye was warm, soft, and surprisingly gentle. It looked at him with an innocence that made his heart ache in a way he couldn't explain. The little creature made a quiet sound, something between a hum and a soft whimper. Mark felt his eyes sting with emotion. He had never seen something so unusual yet so full of pure life. When he finally touched the puppy's fur, it felt warm and soft like a cloud warmed by sunlight. They recognize kindness, Leora said softly, and they recognize truth. They see with their hearts before they see with their eye. Mark swallowed hard. They're beautiful, he whispered, not trusting his voice to say anything louder. Leora nodded, her expression glowing with pride. They are the future of my people. They must stay on this world until their energy fully stabilizes. It is the only place where they can grow without harm. Mark looked up sharply. Stay as in, stay with me. Leora closed her eyes for a moment, gathering her strength. Yes, Mark, you must be the one to protect them. They are small now, but they will grow quickly. They will depend on you not just for safety, but for understanding. Their minds are gentle. They learn from feelings, from kindness, from the quiet parts of the world. His heart raced. He felt honored, overwhelmed, and confused all at once. But, why me? He asked softly. Why not your own people? why not take them home? Leora smiled, the kind of smile that held both sadness and hope. Because their home is not ready for them yet. And because you are the first human in a very long time who opened his heart without fear. You looked at me and saw a person, not a threat. That alone makes you worthy. Mark felt warmth flood through him. He didn't feel worthy, not even close, but he could not deny the connection he felt with Leora and the newborns. It was deeper than anything he had ever experienced. Leora tried to sit up, and Mark quickly moved to help her. She placed a gentle hand on his arm. I cannot stay much longer, she said softly. My energy is fading, and my path calls me home. A cold, heavy feeling settled in Mark's chest. He had known this moment would come, but he hadn't expected it to hurt. You're leaving, he whispered, barely able to speak. Leora nodded slowly. But I am not leaving you alone. My children will stay, and through them, you will carry a part of my world. You will not be empty. Mark looked at the 3 newborns again. They were slowly lifting their heads, blinking their glowing eyes, exploring the world with soft, curious movements. They seemed peaceful, trusting, completely unaware of how important they were. What do I need to do? Mark asked quietly, knowing the responsibility was already his. Leora reached toward the puppies, and they answered with gentle hums that vibrated softly in the air. You only need to care for them, she said. Keep them safe from fear. Provide warmth, peace, and the quiet of nature when you can. Their abilities will awaken slowly, and they will understand you as deeply as you understand them. Mark nodded. Committing her words to his heart, Leora looked at him for a long moment, her eyes glowing with affection and gratitude. You have a strong spirit, Mark. Stronger than you realize. The universe is wide, but sometimes it brings the right souls together for reasons even we cannot fully understand. A gentle wind swept through the desert, lifting small grains of sand around them. The air shimmered slightly, the same way it had when she first arrived. Mark felt panic rise in his chest. Wait, he said, his voice trembling. Will I see you again? Leora's expression softened with something that looked like both hope and sorrow. In your sky, she said. In your dreams, and in the growing light of my children, they will carry my memory, and through them, I will not be far. The shimmer grew brighter, swirling around her. Mark reached out, not ready to let her go. But Leora placed her hand gently over his, calming him with a warmth that spread through his chest. Take care of them, she whispered, and take care of yourself. Your heart is their guide now. With one last soft smile, her form dissolved into the light. The shimmer rose into the sky, fading slowly until it blended with the stars. Mark stayed there on his knees long after she disappeared, feeling the quiet emptiness of the desert all around him. But then he felt something warm nudge his hand. One of the puppies had crawled to his side, looking up at him with its single glowing eye filled with trust. Mark smiled through his tears and gently picked it up. The other 2 waddled clumsily toward him, humming softly as they leaned against his legs. In that moment, he realized he wasn't alone. His life had changed forever, but he wasn't afraid. He looked up at the stars where Leora had vanished, and whispered, I'll take care of them, I promise. And in the quiet night, holding 3 small lives that felt like pieces of another world, Mark felt the beginning of a journey he never could have imagined, one filled with hope, wonder, and a future he was ready to protect.